Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Thursday, July 31st, 2025. I, of course, am here with your daily mortgage market update. Cheers. Make sure you got a cup of coffee. We're going to be here a while this morning. We've got a lot to cover. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. And hopefully, you can't wait to hear what I have to say. So, we are going to talk, of course, about the Fed meeting, is what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about what happened at the Fed meeting yesterday, the dissenting votes, Trump acting like a little bitch on social media yet again. Yes, I said it. Those of you, if I bother you when I tell you the way I feel, then I'm not for you. So I voted for Trump. Don't hate me altogether. I'm not an anti-Trumper. I just am an anti acting like an asshole on social media. But anyway, back on track here. We'll take a look at what's going on with mortgage bonds. Tomorrow's BLS jobs data. So today we got PCE inflation data. There's so many different things we're going to hit on today. We'll get into all of those. Appreciate you being here today. Remember, you can join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you're here this morning, say good morning. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and give me a hashtag replay in the comments. Mr. Ron Siegel, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Mr. Ron Siegel says today is National Chili Dog Day. Let me know in the comments if you're a chili dog fan. I like chili dogs. They're terrible for you, and they're fattening, and they're full of calories, so I don't eat them that often. But yeah, I'm a chili dog guy. But let me know in the comments what y'all think about that, and we will get into all of that as well. Also, remember, if you would like a reminder that I'm going live, you can sign up for that at hmmr.io/reminder or use this cool QR code. If you're on your phone right now, you can actually take a screenshot, go back to your photos. The QR code will work. Also, since we got some QR codes up, you can go ahead and sign up for my written email lock advice, www.ratelockadvice.com. That's already gone out this morning. In fact, I'll throw it up on the screen and y'all can take a look at it with me. Look at this pretty thing here, right? So if you want an email version of what's going out in the morning, you can go ahead and sign up for that at ratelockadvice.com. Also, don't forget you can sign up for our text alerts at www.ratetextalerts.com or use this cool QR code. They're $7 a month. The alerts go out and keep you posted on what's going on in the markets. If there's changes, help you protect your pipeline. So, all right, my friends. Well, again, we have a lot to cover today, and we will go through all of those. So if you are here this morning, thank you, Nicole Samarad. I appreciate you. Thank you. That's very sweet. If you are here this morning, say good morning. Ron Siegel just hit 81 pounds lost on his journey as of today. Ron, that is truly impressive. Your heart thanks you. Keep it up, my man. Definitely keep it up. So good morning. So many of you that are here this morning. Rather than go through the entire list, let's go ahead and dive right in since we're 3 minutes in already. All right, so first things first, let's just talk about where things are actually at the moment and what rate sheets are going to look like, and then we'll go from there. So this morning, mortgage bonds currently up 12 basis points on the day. Let me see. I have to load Presentify because my computer reset yesterday. There it is. All right, so taking a look here. Mortgage bonds up 12 basis points on the day. That's got to give us a smile. All right. Especially if you take a look yesterday. Let me zoom in on this and I may have to refresh the page. Yep. All right. Let me refresh the page so I can move over. All right. So let's go over why being up 12 basis points today is so great. So yesterday when pricing came out, we were right around 99.50, right? So we're going to call this 99.50, okay, when pricing came out. And that was right around here, just a little after 10 a.m. Eastern time is generally when most lenders are setting pricing. Through the afternoon, the early afternoon, we saw bonds improve on the day. Investors were floating high going into the Fed meeting. At the highest point of the day here, bonds were around 99.65. All right, 99.65 at the highest point of the day, which was up about 15 basis points from when pricing came out. However, the Fed's policy statement, the policy statement was right here, and it only came to about here. Nobody expected the Fed to cut rates. The Fed didn't cut rates. There's really no big deal there, and it was what it was. But during Powell's press conference, you could see, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and change this to red because it was bad. Bonds went down, and they just kept going down during his press conference. And that was because during Fed Chair Jerome Powell's press conference yesterday, he didn't signal any dovishness at all. Now, let's go ahead and jump over to some headlines that kind of talk about the Fed meeting itself. But before we do, let's go ahead and just take a look. Mortgage pricing was around 99.50, and we look straight across. Look at this. We're actually up a couple of basis points this morning, and that means that we are going to see pricing that is. Let me just move this out of the. Oops. Hold on. I got to go back to the other one. Here it is. That means we're going to see pricing that is about the same as yesterday. Arguably, it could be a little smidge better, but it really won't be. You're generally not going to see that happen this morning. Why did bonds improve on the day? We'll circle round to that, but let's go ahead and go over yesterday's. Let's go over yesterday's Fed action first, and we'll talk more about that. So let's see. First thing first. Well, I guess we'll start here. So, oh no, this is PCE. So let's go ahead here. All right, so we'll start here. Powell's gamble: the economy will reveal its true self for the next 2 months. Fed chair keeping his options open. Now, let's remember something. This is the Federal Open Market Committee. It is a committee of voters that vote on rates. And in fact, for the first time in decades, when was the last time? No, not inflation. When was the last time Fed had 2 dissenting votes? I read something that said it was decades since there. Last time Federal Reserve had 2 dissenting votes was 2025. The first time was 1993. So the dissenting votes were Christopher Waller. Do you guys think that Waller is in Trump's pocket? I wonder. Remember, his name was briefly mentioned for possibly being Fed chair, and then Mickey Bowman also on that list. And I have more trouble with the fact that Michelle Bowman is now very dovish because she was extremely hawkish, and I feel like her changeover is politically and career motivated more than it is economically motivated. I truly do. I feel that, but I think that she is playing both sides of the field here. So anyway, they did dissent. We had 2 members that dissented. The first double dissent in more than 30 years. Here you go. All right. So this unanimous view of the Fed is something that they've definitely put a lot of stock in the past. And so there is some talk here. But regardless, with that being there, Powell is the one that takes the face on all this. He does the press conference. And so the press conference itself was definitely very clear that it signaled that it is unlikely we are going to see rate cuts anytime soon. And in fact, if we take a look at Fed futures and September, let me go ahead and take a look here. You could see that in September at the next meeting, markets are now less than a 40% probability of a rate cut. Less than a 40% probability of a rate cut. And if we compare that to where we were the last few days, okay, back a month ago, it was a 75% probability of a rate cut in September. And if we look back a week ago, it was a 60% probability of a rate cut in September. Yesterday, that fell to 45% after the Fed meeting, and it has continued to fall to less than 40%. You're talking almost half, right, of where that probability was just a month ago. Markets don't think that the Fed is going to cut in September. It's starting to drop. I think this will continue to drop lower. Now, it's important to note a few different things here. Number one, even though markets are pricing in a likelihood that the Fed will stand pat in September, And let's take a look through December. December expectation of a single rate cut is 42%. Of double rate cuts is 33%. And that has gone down from 41% a week ago. And this has gone up from 32 to 42%. Markets believing this. So we're seeing the idea that markets are pricing in that we may only get one Fed rate cut this year. However, when you take a look at what effect that had on bonds, bonds are flat. In fact, the 10-year treasury yield is better than where it was last Friday. Last Friday was at 4.41. 4.41 right here, right? I'm sorry, was this Monday? This is Monday. On Monday, it was 4.41. Last Friday, it was 4.38. Okay. You could see where the 10-year treasury was here last Thursday, a week ago, and it's better today, even though markets have said that they don't think the Fed is going to cut rates. It's not supposed to work that way, is it? Well, yes, it kind of does. So keep that in mind, because the reason markets think this is because they're afraid of inflation. So that's why we're looking at that. Eric said, with equities at record high, credit spreads super tight, commodities near a 3-year high, Bitcoin sky high, first time unemployment claims at a 3-month low. Now, look at that. That 3-month low thing, they said I think they even said for the first time in 7 weeks. Here it was. Jobless claims near a 3-month low. This is where headlines can get, right? And I kind of agree with Eric on this one. But look at this one, right? ABC News, and this was actually from the Washington Post. The first time benefits inch up for the first time in 7 weeks. They're trying to really, it's a stretch. It's a big stretch, right? But they inched up for the first time in 7 weeks, yet you get another one that talks about how they were at a 3-month low. Unemployment rate at just 4.1%. Car sales running roughly 16 million a year. There's no reason outside of housing for the Fed easing at next week's meeting. At next month's meeting, by 9/15, things may well be different, but for now, doing nothing is the best call. I agree, Eric. I absolutely agree. I know that Ron said politically motivated when one follows the data. Jerome is always wrong, but at least he's consistent. Ron, I love you. I respect you. I just don't agree with you. I know that people are hurting when you look at the real world, but when you look at the data, it's not there. It doesn't support a cut. I just don't see that there. So anyway, let's just kind of definitely keep this going. Mike says it's so political. Mike, I disagree. It's funny because we definitely usually see eye to eye on this stuff, Ron and Mike and I, but I don't think it's political. And Trump is going to go on his usual tirade and do his whole here. Let me find the Trump article. Here you go. Trump renews feud with Powell over rate cut. Jerome, too late. Powell has done it again. He's too late and actually too angry, too stupid, too political to have the job of Fed chair. But he didn't say he was going to fire him this time, you'll notice, right? He's costing our country trillions of dollars. Said it before and said it again. Trump has a different agenda than the Fed. And Powell was asked this during his press conference yesterday. The Fed is not there to make borrowing costs for the U.S. cheaper. Maybe they should be, and it's an argument that could be made, but that would require a change in their mandate. Their mandate is to maximize employment and stable prices. That's their mandate. And they're focusing on stable prices. Now let's get into the prices bit. The PCE inflation data came out, and it did tick up. It is the numbers that we're looking at here. They came in as expected for your monthly numbers, both headline and core, but the year over year numbers came in higher, headline and core. And normally this would be bad for bonds, and it should have definitely caused bonds to lose ground this morning, except for the fact that markets don't care, because the Fed has already made it clear that it's holding rates steady. So this really just supports that decision. It doesn't change that decision. So that's why we didn't see a huge reaction to this, even though inflation did tick higher, and even higher than what was expected. So it was estimated to move higher, and it has moved higher on the year with that. So I think we'll see a little bit more of that next time around. I've already pointed out where I see numbers hitting. when we take a look, let's do Bloomberg's main thing. Trump's, everybody wants the tariffs to have a chance to settle in too, because there's been such games with the tariffs. And again, this part is where it's Trump's agenda to get the tariffs, so he's doing that. Now, it's also important to know that the tariffs are being challenged in court. I don't know what would happen if the tariffs and trade deals are already signed and in place. I don't think they're going to void them. So by the time, they'll push this off, it'll get to the Supreme Court. By the time this actually gets there, even if it were to be ruled that Trump couldn't have used the loophole that he used for national security to do what he did with the trade deals, the tariffs, they'll already be in place. So these trade deals, these are deals, not just tariffs that have been announced. So there's a flurry of trade deals. This didn't really hurt or help bonds this morning. That's why I didn't spend a lot of time with it. We won't go into it too much, but it is definitely something that is there. We talked about PCE inflation. We'll go ahead and hit that jobless claims. They did rise marginally. It was just a tiny bit, but again, the numbers here, there was a forecast of 224,000. It came in at 218,000. So came in slightly better than where it was expected. This is not signs of a weak labor market. Now, tomorrow we get the big labor market reports, BLS jobs data. With that said, let me go ahead and bring up my lock advice email. Let me pull this over here so it's out of the way. All right. Let's go ahead and let's chat with you guys on here. So Ron said, he said yesterday the Fed is restrictive. He went on to say inflation is just above their target. He also said there's concern about the labor market. I haven't read the Daily Feather yet, Ron, so I will read that. Those are comments from the Fed chair yesterday. Powell stance, no visible labor market weakening, only slowing in job creation. Yeah, but I can understand the difference between that. It's not true labor market weakening. Even if Fed dropped the rate, mortgages wouldn't change much at all. And I do agree with that as well. I 100% agree with that. And in fact, we definitely should be excited. Let me see if I can load this up on. Let me see if I can add this to this video is actually a pull from what he said directly about the what's there. So hold on a minute. I'm just going to do it. We're going to do it this way, the ghetto way, just so it works. Let's see.
How do you justify to somebody who's looking for a house, who's facing a 7% mortgage and maybe can't afford those rates? How do you justify that?
The housing is a special case, right? We don't set mortgage rates at the Fed, right? We set an overnight rate, and the rates that go into mortgages are longer term rates, like treasury rates. It might be 30-year rates, it might be shorter than that, but it's not the overnight Fed's rate. It's not that we don't have any effect. We do have an effect, but we're not the main effect. There are other things going on in the housing sector, and one of those is just there's kind of a long-term housing shortage that we have. We haven't built enough housing. This is not something the Fed can help with, and that'll be the case even after things normalize. So I think the best thing that we can do for housing is to have 2% inflation and maximum employment, and that's what we can contribute to housing.
So he kind of flipped the script and then went back to the fact that it goes to the Fed's mandate of maximum employment and price stability, and that's kind of what he did on that. I would have liked here's my opinion. The reason that we have just every problem that we have in the housing market right now is due to the government's reaction to COVID and the way that the pandemic was handled and the way that the Fed had to react to the economy and save the economy. Huge quantitative easing, which led to mortgage rates being dropped. Remember, quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, the Fed buying up mortgage-backed securities and manipulating the market or selling them off is actually much more of a market mover than if the Fed were to raise or cut the Fed funds rate. The driving mortgage rates down into the I have hiccups. Driving mortgage rates down into the twos was the kiss of death to this country's housing market. It drove prices up. Prices literally doubled in many markets. My home I bought in 2017 for $415,000. I could easily sell my home for twice that today. 8 years later, my home doubled. It in 2019, I could have sold it for 430, 440, and 2020, and then today, 800,000. That is what happened. What happened was the reaction to COVID. And rates being down, that shows you why it actually is a bad situation. So now you can blame all the people sitting on low interest rates on the fact that that's what we went through. You could blame all of the housing prices and the huge run up in prices on COVID. And what happened is that when rates went back up, housing prices should have started to come down, but we broke the system. All right, we broke the system. So we'll spend more time talking about that later, but let's go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. Remember something, we've got BLS jobs data tomorrow. For me, anything that's closing, here's how I'm looking at this. Decide if gambling for tomorrow's, if it's closing in the next 15 days, no, cancel. Let me do this. All right. So for the next 15 days, here's where I'm at. Decide if gambling on tomorrow's jobs data or lock them today and call it an early weekend. I do not have a crystal ball. I'm not guessing whether tomorrow will be good or bad, but the gift of pricing this morning where it is, I'd lock to minimize exposure on these loans. I would lock these loans, anything closing in the next couple of weeks, because if we lose ground tomorrow, it's likely to be a pretty big slide. And I just wouldn't be open to that. If the housing market comes in and we see labor market weakness, I don't know that it'll be enough to cause a huge rally. We'll see a pickup, but it won't be a huge rally. I think the losses and potential for losses could be a lot worse than the gains. However, loans that have 30 plus days, loans that are closing outside of August, right? Or at the end of August, I would cautiously float. I wouldn't be too quick to panic lock. If they're risk averse, if they like the pricing where they're at, and again, look at the pricing. I mean, we're looking at pricing that is pretty damn nice. We're looking at pretty good pricing here. Let's use Mortgage News Daily as a reference point. I mean, 6.75, 6.75. We started the month right around the 3rd, right around the same area. We're ending the month, right? We got crept a little bit higher, crept a little bit lower, but overall rates have been stable. Rates will be the same. We've got the CPI inflation report that's going to come out on August 12th. That's 2 weeks away. So that's the next big mover, because markets are going to be looking for signs of actual inflation that the Fed is. And even though the PCE is the gauge that the Fed looks for, the CPI is where it'll show up first. So markets are going to be looking at that to see if we see a change there. But otherwise, that's there. As far as anything's closing longer than, if you got loans that are people out looking, or loans that are construction or anything else, I wouldn't be worried. I'd be floating, because we're not going to see rates move much higher from here. That's the good thing. If they do creep higher, they'll come back down. So definitely for there. Ron said, sorry, you could sell for double because of the new office you are building out back. Dude, I got to take some pictures. I will be in there by next month, by football. I am doing a mad dash to finish the office. It may not be painted and everything finished by September, but it'll be close. But I'm doing a mad dash, the wall, everything insulate, all that stuff. So, but yeah, but even still, it's even without my building, home prices are definitely there. So, BLS jobs data way less than the last administration. I'm not going to say data doesn't get manipulated. I don't disagree with you there. Not in Florida. Are you saying about home prices? Yeah, but here's the problem with Florida. Florida is dealing with insurance problems, and insurance problems bring a whole nother thing. And that was what many people wrote on my Facebook post when I was saying about home prices. Rates are not the problem. Home prices are the problem. Insurance is the problem. In Florida, insurance is a deal killer right now. How expensive is flood and hurricane and homeowners insurances in Florida? It is, that's a deal killer. So that is going to cause a supply and demand issue. And how many people can afford those prices and are moving to Florida? So that's where it's there. Ron said the BLS data will disappoint us again. and the BS data. I guess the Challenger report is irrelevant to this market. You're digging deep, so, but yeah, Ron said, I'm not gambling when I have to base my info on the BS report from the BLS. And that's it. I agree. I don't, I don't know where this data, I'm not going to say the data isn't whatever, but, then it can be argued that this data would be even stronger under Trump, because if it was being manipulated and Trump pressures everybody, wouldn't they want this data to look amazing so it would cause the Fed to cut rates? Or do you think they would make it look super weak to cause the Fed to cut rates? Because the argument, of course, is it's supposed to be super weak. The Fed would cut rates to spur the job market. So wouldn't you think that if there's some influence at play, that it would be really, really low right now to get the rates to cut? Yeah, Ron, California is its own animal. It definitely is. I think everybody would agree. There's certain places in the United States that just stand alone, and California is its own animal. The industries that are able to keep that market, the Silicon Valley money, the Chinese money. Yeah, definitely Chinese money, y'all. There's a lot of money there when you look at like the Bay Area and the number of Chinese that are there. So many things going on. So Ron is my hero. He's thrown me a softball to get some business. He said he's on the calendar for an Originator Success demo. Who is joining me? I want new loans regardless of what's happening with rates. Here, and let me show y'all. I'm going to make a big deal of this. We'll wrap up in a second. I mean, we're way, way long today, but let me show you. Let me see. They're rolling it out now. This is not just, I don't know. Here it is. This is the new website for, it looks weird on the half page. It should make it. There we go. All right. This is the new website. Oh, it is full page. So here, let me just make this full page. All right. Let me put this back up to 100%. All right. Here's the new websites. The color, you'll see like this one's gray. The colors would be changed for your own, whatever, my team is playing with them, but we've got these. This is the whole website. Buying a home and all, already working with somebody else, what FAQ questions. And you'll notice everything like get pre-qualified, and it takes us to your contact page where we can go ahead and click call me, and it will call. It's opening a link to call. I click text, and it's going to go ahead and open my messages, and it's creating a text message, a new text message, right? And they could email, they click email, and it opens up an email about what they want to do. So, I mean, all of this is, these are the new websites. They're fully dynamic. You could turn things on and off. There's sections that are specific if you're a broker, but these we've been testing them. They get really great feedback with consumers. They're creating business. So definitely check those out. Oh, look at this. He's making it colorful. He's being a goof. Anyway, that's what we've got going on there. Thank you, Ron, for the softball. I appreciate you, sir. If y'all are interested in taking a look at Originator Success, go to originatorssuccess.com and schedule some demo. The website's one component of all of what we do. We focus on building your online brand, generating reviews, helping you to be found, be chosen, be remembered. In this market, I do have, we send out content to keep you in front of past clients, a whole bunch of things. So, yeah, Mike, you can say goodbye, lead pops. Definitely. You can jump on the demo. Just go to originatorssuccess.com. You can hop on the demo, and that'll be fired up. So I appreciate you, Ron. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that a lot. All right, everybody. Well, you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you for the conversation. And one thing we can all agree on, since today is National Chili Dog Day, is chili dogs are pretty damn awesome. I like chili dogs with onions, baby, with onions. So, all right, y'all, I'm going to wrap it up. You guys have a fantastic one. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. We'll talk. I got a lot to talk about tomorrow, too. So, bye-bye.